Terry, I'll start with you. Why are we having this conversation in the first place? What makes this so important?
What makes it important is that this is a great return on investment. The best studies done on early childhood education and its impact used randomized experiments on two programs, one in Michigan and one in North Carolina. And those programs were started and done and completed in the 1960s and 70s, and researchers followed those individuals, still are following them up to the present time. And when you crunch all the numbers in terms of the outcomes, it's a $7 to 1 return on investment in early childhood education.
Value. Is there research that shows us even beyond the dollars? And have you seen the same kind of thing that Terry's talking about?
Yeah, there are other studies that have, I mean, whatever the figures are. Is it 1 to 7? Is it 1 to 16? Is it 1 to 3? There's plenty of data there. I would be remiss, though, if we didn't start with, it's also the right thing to do, to get children started. The little video clip that you showed at the beginning, you know, things happen in those early years that affect every domain of a child's development. So do we care about nurturing children in a healthy manner? We do care about that. So I think that ought to be said. But Terry starts at exactly the right place, whether you like children or not. It is an economic investment in community success.
It struck me out, we were talking to Nancy there, that you think about how much time those families fortunate enough to send their kids to college spend thinking about sending their kids to college. But are we spending that kind of time thinking about the first few years?
Well, interestingly enough, you talked about the state of Oklahoma, and actually intervening on saving for college is also one of the things that Oklahoma is experimenting with. And what they found is when they randomize these children to receive either a $1,000 college savings account or not at birth, 3 or 4 years later, when these children are just 3 or 4 years old, you see better social and emotional functioning in the children who have these accounts. You see mothers who have these accounts for their children have lower levels of depressive symptoms. So there are many things we mean when we say early childhood intervention.
Is it more than reading or preparing to learn how to read, preparing to learn how to go to school? Is it more than that?
Depends on your definition of preparing to learn how to go to school. Is it more than reading? Absolutely it is. There are others who will speak tonight about social emotional development, healthy children, whole developmental patterns that mean children, whether a child knows the alphabet by the time they're 3 or not is clearly irrelevant. What is important is they know social behaviors, they're acquiring language, they're acquiring concepts, they're used to seeing books around, they're preparing. And your question about parents think a lot about going to college. Well, the beauty of this evening is connecting American Graduate to early childhood. Whether parents are thinking consciously or not, that early childhood placement, that developmental stuff when the child's an infant, is going to get the child off on a track to successful college.
There is a spirited debate, though, on the share of the instruction that should be academic related as opposed to social emotional. And while everybody thinks both should be involved, not everybody thinks the same fraction should be spent on each.
Great, so let's do it. Why are we not all doing this?
Because it's expensive. The two studies I referenced that have proven the success more than any other social science experiment could do, if we costed them out in 2014 dollars, cost about $11,000 per student per year. And so that type of, which is about what we spend in Missouri on a K through 12 student. But to take cohorts of 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, and we have about 80,000 children in each of those age cohorts in Missouri, and multiply that by 11,000, you've got a pretty big number.
But there's another piece to the economic piece of this puzzle. So there was a study that was published on one of those studies, the children in one of those studies in North Carolina, where we find that 30 years later, 35 years later, the children who were in that intensive early childhood programming had better health profiles. So they were at lower risk for some of the metabolic diseases that lead to heart disease and stroke. They had lower levels of pre-hypertension, pre-diabetes. They were less likely to be obese. And when you think about the 16% of GDP we spend on healthcare, that investment early in life looks pretty minuscule compared to that.
I'm really excited about this connection with health. And the reason for that is the economic arguments, which seem irrefutable, but they've been used over and over and over and haven't turned the tide yet. So this connection with a new area that everybody can relate to and everybody is concerned about, I think could broaden the scope of interest, extend the scope of interest. I think another reason we haven't done enough about this in a societal sense is the lack of political power. And children don't have a strong voice. We spend more on the elderly percentage-wise, and we should. I support that. However, the proportional investment is much greater in young children. So directing political power, community voice, and maybe the health arguments will be able to strengthen beyond the economic.
Am I right to this health, the effect on the health outcomes? That sounds a little bit like the For Sake of All recommendations.
It is. So one of the reasons our #1 recommendation is invest in high quality early childhood development is because it has all of these positive effects across the board, including health as one of those outcomes.
Can we be practical for parents? What should they be looking for when they're having these decisions to make in early childhood care?
Start with good prenatal care and access to good prenatal care. I mean, don't even wait till the baby's born, because the development happens so soon. And I think the holistic approach, holistic learning, safety for their children, health outcomes, connecting to all of the things that are going to be needed for success, all essential.
But it's a sharp contrast for what we have in K through 12 education, public education, where you can go on to the state's Department of Elementary and Secondary Education website and get performance records for each of the buildings in the state. There's no counterpart to that for early childhood education.
Any
But
advice?
you do want a focus on language acquisition, on social and emotional development, a teacher-to-student ratio that is reasonable. There are kind of indicators of quality that you can look for.